Jake Morrison stepped off the transport ship and looked around the massive space station. The place was huge, bigger than any building he had ever seen on Earth. Lights flickered from thousands of windows, and strange sounds echoed through the metal corridors. This was his first time at a tribal council meeting, and everything felt new and scary. He carried only a small bag with his clothes and his diplomatic papers. No weapons, no armor, nothing but the basic things he needed. That was how humans always traveled to these meetings. Jake thought it was normal. The hallway leading to the registration area was full of aliens. Jake had seen pictures of other species before, but being around them in person was different. A group of tall, lizard-like creatures walked past him. Their skin was green and covered in scales that clicked when they moved. Each one carried a long, curved blade that glowed with blue energy. Behind them came a group of insect-like beings. They had 4 arms and big black eyes. Their bodies made soft humming sounds as they moved. Jake could see sharp spikes growing from their backs, and each one wore a belt full of small silver devices that looked like weapons. More aliens filled the hallway. Some looked like giant cats with purple fur. Others were tall and thin with skin that seemed to be made of crystal. A few looked almost human, but their eyes were too big and their fingers were too long. Every single one of them carried weapons. Jake got in line behind a creature that looked like a walking tree. Its bark was dark brown, and small lights blinked along its branches. The tree creature had a large gun strapped to its back and several smaller weapons hanging from its limbs. When Jake reached the front of the line, the alien behind the desk stared at him. The creature had blue skin and 3 eyes. 2 of the eyes looked at Jake, while the third eye looked at a screen. "Name and species," the alien said in a voice that sounded like water bubbling. "Jake Morrison, human," Jake replied. The alien's third eye stopped looking at the screen and joined the other 2 in staring at Jake. All 3 eyes blinked at the same time. "Where are your weapons?" the alien asked. Jake looked confused. "I don't have any weapons. Humans don't bring weapons to these meetings." The alien's blue skin turned a lighter shade. Its hand started shaking as it typed something into the computer. "Please wait here," it said, then pressed a button on its desk. Within minutes, 3 more aliens appeared. They wore official-looking uniforms and carried serious expressions. One of them, a tall creature with red skin and 4 arms, stepped forward. "Mr. Morrison," the red alien said, "I am Security Chief Forth. We need to scan you for hidden weapons." "I told your worker that. I don't have any weapons," Jake said. "Is there a problem?" The security chief looked at the other aliens. They spoke in a language that sounded like clicking and whistling. Finally, the chief turned back to Jake. "It is very unusual for any species to attend a tribal council without weapons," Forth explained. "We must make sure you are not carrying hidden devices." Jake stood still while the aliens pointed strange machines at him. The devices beeped and flashed, but found nothing dangerous. The security chief looked even more confused than before. "You may proceed to the council chambers," Forth said slowly. "But we will be watching you." Jake took his diplomatic papers and walked toward the main hall. He could feel hundreds of alien eyes following him as he moved. Conversations stopped when he passed by. Some aliens stepped out of his way while others moved closer to get a better look at him. The council chamber was enormous. Hundreds of seats were arranged in circles around a central platform. Jake found the section marked for human representatives and sat down. Around him, aliens continued to stare. Dr. Lisa Kane was already in the research section above the main floor. She had been studying alien cultures for 10 years, but she had never seen anything like this. Every alien in the room was armed with at least 1 weapon. Many carried 3 or 4 different devices. But Jake sat alone in his section with nothing but a pen and a notebook. Lisa pulled out her recording device and started taking notes. She watched as a group of lizard-like aliens called Zephyrians took their seats. Their leader, Ambassador Keth Tar, was an old creature with scars covering his green scales. He carried a sword that hummed with energy and a shield that flickered with blue light. Across from the Zephyrians sat the Shadek, beings that looked like they were made of living crystal. Their bodies reflected the lights in the chamber, creating rainbow patterns on the walls. Each Shadek had sharp crystal spikes growing from their arms and backs. These spikes could be launched like arrows, and Lisa knew they could cut through most types of armor. The meeting began when a voice echoed through the chamber. It came from speakers hidden in the walls and spoke in a language that was automatically translated for everyone present. The Tribal Council will now hear the dispute between the Zephyrian Republic and the Shadek Collective, the voice announced. The issue concerns mining rights in the Kepler 442 system. Ambassador Kethtar stood up. His hand rested on the handle of his glowing sword. The Shadek have taken mining stations that belong to my people, he said. They refuse to return what they have stolen. A tall Shadek rose from the crystal section. Light bent around her body, making her hard to look at directly. The Zephyrians abandoned those stations 50 years ago, she replied. Under Galactic law, they became open territory. The argument went on for an hour. Both sides presented evidence and made their points. But Lisa noticed something strange. Every few minutes, the aliens would look over at Jake. He sat quietly, writing notes and listening to the debate. He never spoke or moved in a threatening way. But whenever an alien looked at him, they seemed to calm down a little. The Zephyrian ambassador raised his voice and put his hand on his weapon. The Shadek representative's crystal spike started to glow brighter. The tension in the room grew thick. Then Jake stood up. He didn't say anything. He just stood and looked at both sides. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The Zephyrian's hand moved away from his sword. The Shadek's spikes stopped glowing. Both aliens sat back down. Perhaps we should take a break, Ambassador Kethtar suggested. We can continue this discussion tomorrow. The Shadek representative nodded quickly. Yes, a break would be wise. As the aliens filed out of the chamber, Lisa noticed they gave Jake's section a wide space. They didn't push or crowd near him like they did with each other. Instead, they moved carefully, always keeping their eyes on the human. Lisa decided she needed to understand what was happening. She made her way down to the main floor and approached Ambassador Kethtar. The old lizard was putting his sword away and talking quietly with his assistants. Excuse me, Ambassador, Lisa said. I'm Dr. Kane, a human researcher. I'm curious about something I observed today. Kethtar's 3 assistants immediately stepped back when they heard she was human. The ambassador himself turned to face her, but kept his distance. What would you like to know, Dr. Kane? He asked. I noticed that my colleague, Mr. Morrison, is the only representative here without weapons. Is there a reason for this? The ambassador's yellow eyes grew wider. He looked around to make sure no other aliens were listening, then spoke in a quiet voice. Your species earned that right through blood and terror, Dr. Kane, he said. We learned long ago that humans are far more dangerous without weapons than any of us are with them. Lisa felt a chill run down her back. What do you mean? Kethtar looked at Jake, who was still gathering his papers. Has no one told you about the Vancouver incident or the 17 victories? Your people have a reputation in the galaxy, Doctor. When a human enters a tribal council unarmed, every warrior in the room knows they are looking at the most dangerous creature present. The ambassador walked away before Lisa could ask more questions. She stood alone in the emptying chamber, watching. Jake put his notebook in his bag. He looked so normal, so harmless. But according to Kethtar, every alien in the galaxy thought of humans as something to be feared. Lisa decided she needed to learn more about humanity's history in the tribal councils. Something important had happened, something that changed how aliens saw her species, and she was going to find out what it was. Jake finished packing his things and walked toward the exit. He nodded politely to the few aliens still in the chamber. They nodded back, but Lisa noticed their movements were stiff and careful. They treated Jake the way someone might treat a sleeping tiger, with respect, caution, and the hope that it would stay peaceful. As Jake left the chamber, the lights dimmed automatically. The great room fell quiet, but Lisa could still feel the tension in the air. Tomorrow the council would meet again. The Zephyrians and Shadek would continue their argument, and Jake would sit in his section, unarmed and calm, while hundreds of armed aliens watched his every move. Lisa realized she was witnessing something much bigger than a simple trade dispute. She was seeing the result of something that had happened long before she arrived. something that had taught the galaxy to fear humans in a way they feared no other species. She needed to find out what that something was. Dr. Lisa Kane could not sleep that night. The words of Ambassador Kethtar kept running through her mind. Humans were more dangerous without weapons than aliens were with them. What could that possibly mean? The next morning, Lisa went to the station's research library. The building was huge, with floors and floors of information storage. Aliens of all kinds moved between the shelves, reading books and watching video files. Lisa found a computer terminal and started searching for information about human history and the tribal councils. Most of the files were marked as public records. She read about trade agreements, peace treaties, and border disputes. But when she searched for anything about human combat or the Vancouver incident that Kethtar had mentioned, she found nothing. Those files were restricted. Lisa was getting frustrated when someone sat down at the terminal next to her. She turned and saw an elderly human man with gray hair and kind eyes. He was reading a book about alien cultures. "Excuse me," Lisa said. "Are you Professor Ben Wright?" The man looked up and smiled. "Yes, I am, and you must be Dr. Kane. I heard about your questions yesterday. Word travels fast in a place like this." Lisa felt relieved to meet another human who might have answers. "Professor Wright, I'm trying to understand something about our species' reputation here. The aliens seem to fear us, but I don't understand why." Professor Wright closed his book and looked around the library. Most of the aliens nearby were pretending not to listen, but Lisa could see them watching from the corners of their eyes. "Perhaps we should talk somewhere more private," Wright suggested. They found a small meeting room on the third floor of the library. Professor Wright made sure the door was closed before he started talking. "Dr. Kane, how much do you know about humanity's first contact with the tribal council system?" he asked. "Just the basic facts," Lisa replied. "Earth joined the Galactic Confederation 89 years ago. We started sending representatives to tribal councils shortly after that." Wright nodded. "That's correct. But what you don't know is what happened during our first tribal council meeting. It changed everything." The professor pulled out a small device and projected a holographic display in the air between them. It showed an image of a space station much smaller than the current one. "This was the original tribal council station in the Vancouver system," Wright explained. "Earth sent Captain Steve Collins as our first representative. He was a good diplomat and a decent soldier, but nothing special by human standards." The hologram changed to show a picture of Captain Collins. He was a middle-aged man with brown hair and a friendly face. He looked completely ordinary. "The first meeting was about mining rights in an asteroid belt," Wright continued. 3 species were involved: humans, the Vorthak, and the Centaurians. It should have been a simple trade negotiation. Lisa leaned forward. "What went wrong?" Captain Collins followed standard human diplomatic protocol. He entered the council chamber unarmed, carrying only his papers and a pen. The Vorthak representative, War Chief Brakhun, was insulted. The hologram showed a new image. The Vorthak was enormous, nearly 3 meters tall. His body was covered in thick, natural armor plates. His arms were as thick as tree trunks, and his hands ended in sharp claws. He carried a weapon that looked like a combination of an axe and an energy rifle. Brakhun thought Captain Collins was mocking him by coming unarmed, Wright explained. In Vorthak culture, entering a negotiation without weapons means you think your opponent is too weak to be a threat. "So what happened?" Lisa asked. Brakhun challenged Collins to ritual combat. In the tribal council system, any representative can demand a physical contest to settle a dispute. The human had to accept or lose all negotiating rights for his species. Lisa felt her stomach drop. "A human against that thing, that's not fair." Professor Wright smiled sadly. "That's exactly what every alien in the chamber thought. They expected Captain Collins to be killed in seconds. The betting pools gave him odds of 1,000 to 1 against." The hologram changed again, showing the interior of a combat chamber. It was a circular room with high walls and no furniture except for weapon racks along the sides. "The rules were simple," Wright said. "Both fighters enter the chamber. They can use any weapons they find inside plus anything they brought with them. The fight continues until one surrenders or dies." Collins went in with nothing, Lisa said. Exactly. Bracoon entered with his energy halberd, his armor and 40 years of combat experience. He had never lost a ritual fight. Lisa watched the hologram as it showed two figures entering the chamber. The massive Vorthak warrior looked confident and ready. The human looked small and fragile next to him. The fight lasted 3 minutes and 47 seconds. Wright said quietly. The hologram began to move, showing a recreation of the battle. Lisa watched as Bracoon charged at Collins with his glowing weapon raised high. The human dodged at the last second, causing the Vorthak to crash into the wall. Collins didn't try to overpower Bracoon, Wright explained. He studied the environment and used it against his opponent. On the hologram, Collins grabbed a loose piece of metal from the wall and threw it at Bracoon's feet. When the warrior stumbled, Collins jumped onto his back and used the alien's own weapon strap to choke him. But that's not what shocked the watching aliens, Wright continued. It was how Collins fought. He didn't just react to Bracoon's attacks, he predicted them. He turned every part of the chamber into a weapon. Lisa watched as the human used the curved walls to redirect the Vorthak's charges. He broke off pieces of the weapon racks and used them as clubs and spears. When Bracoon cornered him, Collins somehow turned the warrior's own momentum against him. The end came when Collins got hold of Bracoon's halberd, Wright said. But instead of using it as a weapon, he used it as a lever. He wedged it against the floor and flipped the Vorthak over his head. Bracoon landed hard and couldn't get up. The hologram showed Collins standing over the defeated warrior. The human wasn't even breathing hard. Collins helped Bracoon to his feet and made sure he wasn't seriously hurt, Wright said. Then he apologized for the fight and asked if they could continue their trade negotiations. Lisa stared at the hologram. What did the other aliens think? They were terrified, Wright replied. None of them had ever seen anything like it. Bracoon was considered one of the greatest warriors in the galaxy. He had armor, weapons, and size advantages. Collins had nothing but his brain and his body, and Collins won easily. The professor turned off the hologram and looked directly at Lisa. But the real fear came from what happened next. Over the following 10 years, 17 more alien representatives challenged humans to ritual combat. The aliens had different advantages: poison, telepathy, extra arms, energy shields, superior technology. And, Lisa asked, though she was beginning to guess the answer, humans won every single fight, not just one, dominated. We had representatives who were diplomats, scientists, traders. None of them were professional soldiers, but when they were challenged, they all fought like Collins. Wright pulled out another device and showed Lisa a list of names and dates. Here are the 17 victories. Each one was different, but the pattern was always the same. The human would enter unarmed, study the opponent and environment, then use both against the challenger. Lisa read through the list. The human representatives had fought creatures with acid blood, telepathic powers, and technology that could bend space and time. In every case, the human had found a way to win. The aliens started calling it human combat intelligence, Wright explained. They realized that humans don't just fight with their bodies, we fight with everything around us. We turn the entire universe into a weapon. But why? Lisa asked. What makes humans different? Wright leaned back in his chair. Evolution, Dr. Kane. Humans evolved on a planet full of predators that were bigger, stronger, and faster than we were. We survived by being smarter, more adaptable, and more creative. When we fight, we don't just use our muscles, we use our minds. Lisa thought about what she had observed in the council chamber. That's why the aliens watch Jake so carefully. They're not afraid of what he might do. They're afraid of what he might think of. Exactly, Wright said. To them, an unarmed human is like a puzzle box that might explode. They know we're dangerous, but they can't predict how that danger might manifest. The professor stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Lisa could see aliens moving through the station corridors. They looked busy and normal, but she understood, now that they were all carrying weapons because humans existed. The Confederation made a rule after the 17 victories, Wright continued. Humans were no longer allowed to carry weapons to tribal councils, not because we might use them inappropriately, but because we were too effective without them. The aliens are more comfortable when we're unarmed? Lisa asked. It's psychological warfare, whether we intend it or not, Wright explained. When aliens see an unarmed human in a dangerous situation, they assume the human has a plan they can't understand. It makes them cautious and willing to negotiate rather than fight. Lisa felt a strange mix of pride and worry. So our reputation keeps the peace? Yes and no, Wright said. It prevents violence, but it also creates fear. Some species have stopped developing their own conflict resolution skills because Jake Morrison woke up to the sound of his door buzzer. He checked the time and saw it was very early in the morning. When he opened the door, he found a tall woman in a military uniform standing in the hallway. Mr. Morrison, I'm Commander Amy Davis, she said. I need to speak with you immediately. Jake led her into his room and offered her a chair. Commander Davis looked tired, like she had been traveling for a long time. Sir, there's been a situation, she began. 2 species are about to start a war, and you're the only human representative available to help. Jake felt confused. Commander, I'm just here to observe trade negotiations. I don't know anything about stopping wars. Davis pulled out a tablet and showed him news reports. The headlines talked about military ships moving toward the border between 2 territories. Both sides were threatening to attack. The Bractor Confederation and the Nelith Collective have been arguing about shipping routes for months, Davis explained. Yesterday, a Bractor cargo ship was destroyed near Nelith space. Both sides blame the other. That's terrible, Jake said, but I still don't understand what this has to do with me. Commander Davis looked at him carefully. Mr. Morrison, has anyone explained to you why humans attend tribal councils? To represent Earth's interests in trade and diplomacy, Jake replied. Davis sighed. That's part of it, but not the whole truth. Humans have become the galaxy's unofficial peacekeepers. When other species can't solve their conflicts, they ask for human mediation. Jake sat down heavily in his chair. No one told me that. The Confederation tries to keep it quiet, Davis said. They don't want other species to think humans control the galaxy. But the reality is that your presence here isn't just about trade. It's about preventing wars. Before Jake could respond, his door buzzer sounded again. This time it was Dr. Lisa Kane, looking excited and worried at the same time. Jake, I need to talk to you about something important, she said, then noticed. Commander Davis. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you had company. Dr. Kane, please come in, Davis said. You might be able to help Mr. Morrison understand his situation. Lisa sat down and looked between Jake and the commander. What situation? Davis explained about the conflict between the Bractor and Nelith. She told Lisa that Jake had been automatically assigned as mediator because he was the only human available. I've been researching human history in the tribal councils, Lisa said slowly. The aliens fear us because of our combat abilities, but they also depend on us to solve their problems. Jake felt overwhelmed. I came here to learn about alien cultures and help with trade agreements. Now you're telling me I'm supposed to prevent a war? It's not that simple, Davis replied. You don't have to solve the conflict yourself. Your job is to convince both sides to talk instead of fight. How am I supposed to do that? Jake asked. Davis and Lisa looked at each other. Finally, Lisa spoke up. Jake, yesterday I watched you stand up during the Zephyrian-Shadek dispute. Both sides immediately agreed to take a break. You didn't say anything, but your presence changed the entire situation. I was just stretching my legs, Jake said. To you, yes, Davis replied. But to the aliens it looked like you were analyzing the conflict. They would rather solve their problems themselves than risk having a human solve it for them. Jake's tablet beeped with an incoming message. The message was from the Tribal Council Administration, officially requesting his services as a mediator for the Bractor-Nelith crisis. I don't know how to be a mediator, Jake said. Commander Davis stood up. That's why I'm here. I'm going to teach you some basic techniques. But first, you need to understand who you're dealing with. She activated a holographic display that showed 2 very different alien species. The first group looked like large, muscular creatures with thick skin and small eyes. They wore heavy armor and carried big weapons. The Bractor are a warrior culture. Davis explained. They believe that strength and courage are the most important qualities. They solve most problems through combat or shows of force. The hologram changed to show the second species. These aliens were tall and thin, with pale skin that seemed to glow softly. They moved in a way that reminded Jake of dancers. The Nelith are the opposite, Davis continued. They're pacifists who believe violence is never the answer. They prefer meditation, discussion, and compromise. They sound like they should get along well, Jake said. That's the problem, Lisa replied. They're so different that they can't understand each other. The Bractor think the Nelith are weak cowards. The Nelith think the Bractor are violent savages. Davis nodded. When species are this different, they often need a neutral party. To help them communicate, that's where humans come in. Jake looked at the images of both species. Why don't they ask other aliens to mediate? Because other species take sides, Davis explained. The warrior cultures support the Bractor. The peaceful cultures support the Nelith. Humans are unique because we can understand both perspectives. Plus, Lisa added, both sides respect humans enough to listen to what we say. They might not agree with each other, but they'll both pay attention to a human mediator. Commander Davis turned off the holographic display. Mr. Morrison, the first representatives from both species will arrive this afternoon. Your job is to get them talking to each other instead of preparing for war. Jake felt nervous. What if I mess this up? You won't, Davis said confidently. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be human. A few hours later, Jake found himself in a conference room with two very different aliens. War Chief Bractor was even larger in person than he had appeared in the hologram. His armor was covered in scratches and dents from old battles. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together when he spoke. Across the table sat Peace Weaver Nelith. Her skin glowed with a soft white light that pulsed gently. When she moved, she seemed to float rather than walk. Her voice was like music when she spoke. War Chief Bractor, Jake began. Thank you for coming here instead of attacking. The large alien's eyes narrowed. I came because you asked, human. But my patience is limited. The Nelith destroyed one of our cargo ships. Peace Weaver Nelith, Jake continued, thank you for agreeing to this meeting. The glowing alien bowed her head slightly. Violence serves no purpose, Mediator Morrison. But we cannot allow the Bractor to blame us for their own failures. Jake could see that both aliens were angry, but they were trying to control themselves. He realized that they were being careful because he was human. Let's start with the facts, Jake said. War Chief, tell me about the cargo ship that was destroyed. Bractor leaned forward. The ship Iron Fist was carrying medical supplies to our colonies. It was destroyed while passing through neutral space near the Nelith border. Peace Weaver Nelith, what do your people know about this incident? Jake asked. Nelith's glow became slightly brighter. Our sensors detected the explosion, but we had no ships in that area. We believe the Bractor ship suffered a mechanical failure. Lies, Bractor roared, standing up so fast that his chair fell over. Your people have secret weapons that can destroy ships from far away. Nelith's glow dimmed. We do not possess such weapons. We do not believe in creating tools of destruction. Jake watched both aliens carefully. He could see that Bractor truly believed the Nelith had attacked his ship, and Nelith truly believed her people were innocent. War Chief, Jake said calmly, what evidence do you have that the Nelith destroyed your ship? Bractor pulled out a data tablet. The explosion pattern is not consistent with mechanical failure. It shows signs of external attack. Jake studied the data. The explosion had indeed been caused by an external force, but the energy signature was strange. Peace Weaver, Nelith, Jake said. Are there any other species in your region who might have attacked the ship? Nelith thought for a moment. There are pirates who operate in the outer systems. They use stolen technology from many different species. Bractor's expression changed slightly. Pirates would explain the unusual energy signature, he admitted. Jake felt a spark of hope. Is it possible that pirates attacked the Iron Fist and made it look like a Nelith attack? Both aliens looked at each other for the first time since the meeting began. The pirates have used this tactic before, Nelith said slowly. They attack ships and leave evidence that points to innocent species. Braktor sat back down. If pirates were responsible, then my people would owe the Nelith an apology, and my people would be willing to help hunt down these pirates, Nelith replied. Jake smiled. So instead of fighting each other, you could work together against your common enemy. Over the next hour, Jake helped both species plan a joint investigation. The Braktor would provide military ships for protection. The Nelith would provide advanced sensors to track the pirates. When the meeting ended, both aliens seemed satisfied with the agreement. But as they prepared to leave, War Chief Braktor approached Jake privately. Human, the warrior said quietly. My people maintain detailed files on your species' combat methods. Jake looked surprised. Why? Not for warfare, Braktor explained, quickly. For avoiding conflicts with humans, your species fights in ways we cannot predict or counter. It is better for us to solve our problems ourselves than to risk fighting you. Peace Weaver. Nelith also approached Jake before leaving. Mediator. Morrison, she said, my people. Captain Sam Brooks sat in Dr. Alex Turner's office, staring at his hands. He had been a human diplomat for 8 years, but he looked much older than his actual age. His hair was turning gray, and deep lines showed around his eyes. Tell me about the dreams again, Sam, Dr. Turner said gently. Sam took a deep breath. They're always the same. I'm standing in a conference room full of aliens. They're all watching me, waiting for me to do something terrible, but I never do anything. I just stand there, and they get more and more afraid. Dr. Turner wrote notes on her tablet. She was a psychologist who specialized in helping humans who worked in space. Over the past few years, she had seen more, and more diplomats with problems like Sam's. Have you ever actually fought in a tribal council? She asked. No, Sam replied. I've mediated 43 conflicts over 8 years. I've never thrown a punch, never raised my voice, never even made a threatening gesture. But every alien I meet treats me like I'm a walking weapon. Dr. Turner had heard this story many times before. Human diplomats were successful at their jobs, but the psychological cost was enormous. Sam, you're respected throughout the galaxy, she said. You've prevented wars, saved lives, and helped species resolve conflicts peacefully. Sam laughed, but there was no happiness in the sound. Respected? Dr. Turner, they're not respecting me. They're terrified of me. Every alien I meet is calculating how to avoid making me angry. Is that necessarily a bad thing? Dr. Turner asked. Sam stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see aliens moving through the station corridors. Even from this distance, he could see how they gave wide spaces to any humans they encountered. Do you know what it's like to be feared by everyone you meet? Sam asked. I can't have a normal conversation with an alien. They agree with everything I say, not because they think I'm right, but because they're afraid to disagree. Dr. Turner had been studying this problem for months. Her research showed that human diplomatic personnel had much higher rates of depression, anxiety, and social isolation compared to other professions. Sam, have you considered requesting a transfer back to Earth? She asked. And do what? Sam replied. I'm good at this job. I've helped save billions of lives by preventing wars. But the cost? He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Dr. Turner's office door chimed. She checked her appointment schedule and saw that her next patient was early. Sam, we need to continue this conversation later, she said. But I want you to know that you're not alone in feeling this way. Sam nodded and left the office. As he walked past Dr. Turner's next patient in the waiting area, he noticed the alien immediately stand up and bow deeply. It was an automatic response that Sam had seen thousands of times before. The alien was a meditation master named Yindal. She belonged to a species that looked like tall, thin humans with blue skin and large eyes. Her people were known throughout the galaxy for their wisdom and peaceful nature. Dr. Turner, Yindal said as she entered the office. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. Of course, Dr. Turner replied. Your message said you wanted to discuss human psychology? Yindal sat down carefully. Even her movements seemed calm and controlled. My species has been studying humans for decades. We are trying to understand what makes your people so effective in conflict situations. Dr. Turner felt curious. What have you discovered? Disturbing things, Yindal replied. Humans do not just adapt to violence. You seem to absorb and weaponize every aspect of your environment, including social and psychological elements. Can you explain what you mean? Dr. Turner asked. Yindal activated a small holographic display. It showed brain scans of different species during stressful situations. When most species encounter conflict, their brains focus on specific responses, fight, flight, or submission, she explained. But human brains work differently. The display showed a human brain scan. The pattern of activity was much more complex than the alien examples. Humans simultaneously analyze the environment, predict opponent behavior, calculate social dynamics, and plan multiple responses, Yindal continued. Your species treats every interaction as a potential combat situation. Dr. Turner studied the brain scans. Are you saying humans are naturally more aggressive? No, Yindal replied. Humans are naturally more analytical. You cannot help but study and categorize everything around you as potential tools or threats. The Meditation Master changed the display to show video recordings of human diplomats in action. Watch this carefully, she said. Dr. Turner saw Captain Brooks during one of his mediation sessions. On the surface, he looked calm and professional. But Yindal slowed down the video and pointed out subtle details. Notice how he positions himself near the exit, she said. See how he keeps track of every weapon in the room. Watch how he studies each alien's body language and adjusts his own behavior accordingly. Dr. Turner realized that Brooks was unconsciously treating the diplomatic meeting like a battlefield. He wasn't planning to fight, but his brain was automatically preparing for that possibility. This is why aliens fear humans, Yindal explained. They can sense that you are always analyzing them. Even when you are being peaceful, you are studying weaknesses and calculating advantages. Dr. Turner felt a chill. Is this conscious behavior? Not usually, Yindal replied. Most humans are not aware they are doing it. But aliens can sense the analysis happening. It makes them very uncomfortable. The meditation master turned off the display and looked directly at Dr. Turner. Dr. Turner, my people are concerned about the psychological effect this has on humans, she said. We have observed that human diplomats often become isolated and depressed. Yes, I've been studying that problem, Dr. Turner replied. Many of our diplomats report feeling lonely and misunderstood. There is another concern, Yindal continued. Other species have become dependent on human intervention. They no longer develop their own conflict resolution skills. Dr. Turner thought about the implications. You're saying that humanity's effectiveness is actually hurting the galaxy's ability to solve its own problems? Exactly, Yindal replied. Species that once had complex negotiation traditions now simply wait for humans to arrive and solve their disputes. Before Dr. Turner could respond, her office door chimed again. This time it was an emergency signal. She activated her communication system and heard Commander Davis's voice. Dr. Turner, we have a situation, Davis said. There's a minor conflict between two trading species, and it's escalating because no human mediator is available. Dr. Turner looked at Yindal. Can you explain what you mean? The Kalari and Gentic have a simple shipping dispute, Davis continued. Normally, this would be resolved in an hour, but without a human present, both sides are refusing to compromise. Why? Dr. Turner asked. Because they've forgotten how to negotiate with each other, Davis replied. They've become psychologically dependent on human mediation. Dr. Turner realized she was witnessing exactly what Yindal had been describing. The aliens weren't just afraid of humans. They had become unable to function without human oversight. Commander, what happens if we don't provide a mediator? She asked. The conflict will probably escalate, Davis admitted. Not because the issues are serious, but because neither side knows how to back down without losing face. After the communication ended, Yindal spoke again. Dr. Turner, this is happening throughout the galaxy. Species that were once proud and independent now require human approval for their decisions. Dr. Turner felt overwhelmed. What can we do about it? My people have a suggestion, Yindal replied. Instead of solving conflicts for other species, humans could teach them how to solve conflicts themselves. Would that work? Dr. Turner asked. We believe so, Yindal said. Humans have developed very effective negotiation techniques. If you shared these methods instead of simply providing results, other species could regain their independence. Dr. Turner thought about Captain Brooks and the other human diplomats she had been treating. They were suffering because they were isolated by their reputation. But what if they could be teachers instead of enforcers? There would be resistance, she said. Many species prefer having humans solve their problems. It's easier than learning new skills. Yes, Yindal agreed, but dependency is not healthy for any species. My people would support an effort to help the galaxy become more self-sufficient. Dr. Turner's communication system activated again. This time it was Captain Brooks. Dr. Turner, I just witnessed something disturbing, he said. I was walking through the merchant quarter when a fight broke out between two alien vendors. Instead of trying to resolve it themselves, they started looking around for a human to help them. What did you do? Dr. Turner asked. I helped them, of course, Brooks replied. But Dr. Turner, these were grown beings arguing about the price of fruit. They should have been able to solve that problem themselves. After Brooks signed off, Dr. Turner looked at Yindal. You're right, she said. Humanity's role in the galaxy has become unhealthy for everyone involved. The question is whether your species will be willing to change, Yindal replied. Giving up power is never easy, even when that power is a burden. Dr. Turner realized that humanity faced a choice. They could continue being the galaxy's enforcers, which provided security but created dependency. Or they could try to teach other species to be. President Helen Carter stood before the largest gathering of alien representatives in galactic history. The great assembly hall on the Confederation capital station was filled with creatures from hundreds of worlds. Every seat was occupied, and the air hummed with tension. Fellow beings of the Confederation, President Carter began, I come before you today to discuss humanity's role in galactic diplomacy. A wave of whispers swept through the audience. Many aliens leaned forward in their seats while others seemed to shrink back. The presence of so many humans on the speaker's platform was making everyone nervous. Behind President Carter stood Ambassador Chris Murphy, a man who had spent 40 years preventing wars throughout the galaxy. Next to him was Dr. Turner, Captain Brooks, and several other human diplomats who had volunteered to support this difficult mission. For nearly 90 years, Carter continued, humans have served as mediators in your conflicts. We have prevented countless wars and saved billions of lives. But today, I must tell you that this arrangement is not working. The hall erupted in concerned voices. Aliens began speaking rapidly in their native languages, and the translation systems struggled to keep up. High Admiral Klexnar, the Confederation's supreme military commander, stood up from his seat in the front row. The tall, insect-like creature's voice cut through the noise. President Carter, he said, human mediation has brought unprecedented peace to the galaxy. Why would you want to change this system? Carter looked at the Admiral calmly. Because it has also brought unprecedented dependency. Admiral, when was the last time your forces resolved a conflict without requesting human assistance? Klexnar's mandibles clicked nervously. Human expertise is invaluable in preventing unnecessary violence. That's exactly the problem, Ambassador, Murphy said, stepping forward. You've stopped developing your own conflict resolution skills because you expect humans to solve your problems. A representative from the Zephyrian Republic stood up. Ambassador Murphy, your species has superior analytical abilities. It is logical for us to use the best tools available. But we're not tools, Captain Brooks replied. We're people, and this role is destroying us psychologically. Dr. Turner activated a holographic display that showed statistics about human diplomatic personnel. The numbers were shocking. Rates of depression, anxiety, and social isolation among human diplomats were far higher than any other profession. Our diplomats are suffering, she explained, because they are feared rather than respected. They cannot form normal relationships with the beings they are trying to help. An ancient creature called Elder Veltar slowly stood up from her seat. She was one of the oldest beings in the Confederation, and her voice carried great authority. "President Carter," she said in a voice like wind through leaves, "I remember the Confederation before humans joined us. Species resolved their conflicts through complex negotiations, careful ceremonies, and genuine compromise." The hall grew quiet as everyone listened to the elder. "Human intervention has made us lazy," she continued. "We no longer teach our children how to negotiate because we assume humans will always be available to solve our problems." President Carter nodded. "Elder Veltar speaks the truth. The Confederation has become dependent on human fear to maintain peace. This is not sustainable." "What are you proposing?" asked Peaceweaver Nelith, the glowing alien who had worked with Jake Morrison. "We propose a gradual transition," Carter replied. "Instead of serving as mediators, humans would serve as teachers. We would share our conflict resolution techniques and train other species to handle their own disputes." The reaction was immediate and negative. Aliens throughout the hall began protesting loudly. "Impossible!" shouted War Chief Braktor. "Humans have natural advantages that cannot be taught." "Our methods only work because of our reputation," argued a crystalline Shadek representative. "Without the fear factor, negotiations would collapse." "Ambassador." Murphy stepped forward again. "That fear factor is exactly what we need to eliminate. Peace built on terror is not real peace." Dr. Turner showed another holographic display, this one featuring a young human woman. "I want you to meet Tara Lewis," she said. "She's our newest diplomatic recruit, and she represents a different approach to human mediation." The display showed video of Tara working with a group of alien representatives. Unlike the older human diplomats, she didn't rely on intimidation or reputation. Instead, she used empathy, active listening, and collaborative problem-solving. Tara wasn't trained in military tactics before entering diplomatic service, Dr. Turner explained. Her methods rely on understanding rather than fear, and they work. Elder Veltar studied the video carefully. "This human treats the disputants as equals rather than potential threats." "Exactly," Carter replied. "This is the future we're proposing. Humans who teach cooperation instead of enforcing compliance through fear." High Admiral Klexnar's voice was skeptical. "And what happens when species refuse to cooperate? What happens when conflicts escalate beyond peaceful resolution?" "Captain," Brooks answered. "Then you'll have to learn to solve those problems yourselves, just like every other challenge the Confederation faces." The debate continued for hours. Some species were excited about the possibility of regaining their independence. Others were terrified at the thought of losing human protection. Senator Rick Palmer, a human politician who had arrived with the trade delegation, stood up to speak. "President Carter, many humans see our reputation as an advantage," he said. "Why should we give up the respect and influence it provides?" Carter's response was firm. "Because respect based on fear is not respect at all, Senator. It's coercion, and it's turning us into something we never wanted to be." Ambassador Murphy added, "Senator, our young diplomats are leaving the service because they can't handle the psychological pressure. If we continue on this path, we'll have no one left to send to these councils." An unexpected voice joined the conversation. Jake Morrison, who had been sitting quietly in the observation section, asked for permission to speak. "I've only been here for a few days," he said, "but I've learned something important. When I stood up during that first council session, I wasn't trying to intimidate anyone. I was just stretching my legs. But the aliens interpreted my action as a threat analysis." Jake walked down to the speaker's platform. "That's when I realized that aliens don't just fear what humans might do. They fear what humans might think of. Our reputation isn't based on our weapons or our strength. It's based on our minds." Dios. Hall fell completely silent as Jake continued. "But our minds are also our greatest gift to the galaxy. We can teach other species to think the way we think, to analyze problems the way we analyze them. We don't have to be the galaxy's weapon. We can be the galaxy's teachers. Elder Veltar spoke again. The young human speaks wisdom. Perhaps it is time for the Confederation to grow beyond its dependence on fear. President Carter presented the formal proposal, a 10-year transition program where humans would gradually shift from mediation to education. The Confederation would establish training centers where alien diplomats could learn human negotiation techniques. This won't be easy, Carter warned. There will be conflicts that escalate because no human mediator is available. Some species may resist learning new skills, but the alternative is a galaxy that can never truly be at peace because it depends on fear for stability. The vote was close, but the proposal passed. The Confederation agreed to begin the transition program, starting with volunteer species and gradually expanding to include all members. After the session ended, Tara Lewis found herself surrounded by alien representatives who wanted to learn more about her methods. Unlike the usual fearful respect shown to humans, these aliens displayed genuine curiosity and eagerness. "This is what it should feel like," she told Dr. Turner. "They're talking to me like I'm a teacher, not a weapon." 6 months later, the first interspecies mediation training course began. Tara Lewis stood before a classroom filled with alien diplomats from dozens of worlds. Jake Morrison watched from the observation deck, remembering his own confusion when he first arrived at the Tribal Council. "Today we're going to learn about collaborative problem solving," Tara announced to her students. "The goal isn't to win or lose. The goal is to find solutions that work for everyone." A young Zephyrian raised his hand. "Teacher Lewis, what if the other party refuses to cooperate?" Tara smiled. "Then we use patience, creativity, and empathy to help them understand why cooperation serves their interests better than conflict." Jake watched as Tara guided the aliens through role-playing exercises. They practiced active listening, emotional regulation, and creative thinking. Some of them struggled with concepts that came naturally to humans, but they were learning. Dr. Turner joined Jake in the observation deck. "How do you think it's going?" she asked. "Better than I expected," Jake replied. "Look at them. They're actually excited about learning these skills." On the classroom floor, a Braktor warrior was successfully negotiating with a Nelith peace weaver. Both aliens were using techniques they had learned from Tara, and they were finding common ground without any human intervention. "It's working," Dr. Turner said with amazement. "They're actually doing it themselves." Ambassador Murphy appeared beside them. "The real test will come when they face their